Thank you for joining us at the Emirates Airline Festival of Literature. In this session, we will explore the intriguing world of artificial intelligence and its impact on the art industry. My name is Tamara Clark. I'm a children's author and journalist based here in the UAE. I've been living in Abu Dhabi for the last 11 years. I will be moderating this session, and it's my pleasure to introduce our guest. Toby Walsh is one of the world's leading researchers in artificial intelligence. He is a professor at the University of New South Wales and chief scientist at its new AI institute, UNSW.ai. He appears regularly on TV and radio to talk about the impact of AI and robotics. And he is also the author of several books about AI, including Faking It, Artificial Intelligence in a Human World, which we will reference during this session. He was named by The Australian as one of the rock stars of Australia's digital revolution. And we are fortunate to have him here with us this morning. Andy Stanton is an award-winning children's author whose hilarious Mr. Gum books have sold over 3 million copies in the UK alone. They have been translated into more than 30 languages and have won several awards, including the Red House Children's Book Award and the Ronald Dahl Funny Prize. His whimsical and funny new book, Benny the Blue Whale, A Descent into Story, Language, and the Madness of ChatGPT, was written in a strange, feverish collaboration with ChatGPT. So please help me give a warm welcome to Andy Stanton and Toby Walsh. Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna jump right into probably the most pressing question of the morning. How did your collaboration with ChatGPT come about?
Wow. It's been a strange year or so. I have a cousin who was a software developer for 4 decades. He's a great friend of mine, my cousin Dave. We have spent many years in our time knowing each other, falling into strange obsessive behavior with each other. He has the software engineer mind, I have the curly-haired artist mind. We have a lot of overlapping interests. He WhatsApped me at the end of 2022. Oh, Andy, have you been playing with ChatGPT yet? I said, I have not. Then he sent me a mashup where he'd asked ChatGPT to take my kids' books and mash them up with the TV series Breaking Bad. Mr. Gum meets Breaking Bad. And then he sent me another thing where he'd asked ChatGPT to then write a critique of the mashup. And then he sent me another thing where he asked ChatGPT to write a critique of the critique.
Very meta.
Yes. And I thought, oh dear, I'm in. And then I fell down a wormhole, which lasted a month working with ChatGPT, and then all of last year writing this book about ChatGPT. And I'm only just recovering the shreds of my sanity right now.
Wow, thank you for that. Did working with ChatGPT alter your creative process?
It altered everything. Yeah, I mean, I accidentally picked up, we're here with a genuine expert on this technology, world-changing technology, but unfortunately for you, you're also here with world-changing technology meets world-class idiot, and that's me. And so I accidentally picked up this torch of carrying, this accidental experiment that I fell into with this machine. I didn't plan. I didn't go, oh, I can write a book for nothing. I can steal creativity. I just fell into a natural experiment with something which intrigued me, obsessed me, and worried the life out of me.
You mentioned in there stealing creativity and their ethical and implications to ChatGPT, well, AI as a field, and we'll get into that later. But I wanted to ask, understanding that computers leverage human intelligence. Okay.
But before we finish the stealing, what did you think when you discovered that your books were part of the training data? Because I had this experience. I'll tell you what I thought about it. But what did you think when you realised that your hard work and funny jokes?
When Mr. Gum was part of the training data, yes. I'm happy. I'm happy that my stuff is part of culture, and if it's gone into a machine that eats up culture and spits it back in new configurations. I'm not an advocate for...
But there you're shivering in your garret in North London.
Yes.
and all this vast wealth is being generated. OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, is currently valued about $90 billion.
Yeah.
That's the fastest generation of wealth ever.
Right.
Of any company ever has not grown that quickly. And it's all on the back of your work.
It's not all on the back of my work.
No. Of your work, my work, and all the other 100,000 authors.
I'm a tiny cog in that, but I'm a tiny cog. We're big.
A tiny piece of 90 billion would still be quite worth having.
That's right, but everything we do these days is being sold to companies online anyway, and our data's being mined. This is not a new thing.
But you don't have to put up with it.
We may not have to. We may not have to put up with our artistic output being mined, and that's another discussion. But we do mostly put up with our data being mined, and we are part of these vast systems already, and we're increasingly used to this.
We come to your artistry being mined, because there's a distinct style that you've cultivated,
which ChatGPT cannot emulate very well at all.
Good.
Yes, it is good. I'm not an advocate of replacing artists and creators with AI. I may be an advocate of augmenting art with AI tools. I think that's how we're going to end up. When technology comes along and intersects with art, it's not a one-way street. The fear with AI is that it might be a one-way street, that we'll all be replaced, it will take all our jobs, the future is robotic. I don't think that's going to happen. But I know that in the past, when technology has come along and threatened art, it has pushed artists and creators to find new ways to express themselves. So the British painter Turner, for example, started off as a realist painter, painting seascapes that were, he didn't know they were as photographically realistic as possible because photography had not been invented. And then photography was invented, and Turner took one look at photographs and thought, my work here is done unless I change, unless I adapt. And he started basically trading in abstract expressionism, and that pushed his art into new abstract realms. And that's why we remember Turner, because the technology forced him to change. AI pushes us, we push back. AI pushes back, we push back. That's what we do as humans. We adapt and dance and cavort and leap and make strange little neurological glitches that, as yet, artificial intelligence doesn't have anything approximating the same level of organic creation.
Okay.
And response.
Well, you seem to have a very strong opinion about this, Toby. So tell us, how would you, or what would be the balance between training the machines and protecting intellectual property?
So as I hinted at, my books are also in the training data, and I was a bit outraged that, they just, without consent, illegally downloaded copies of my book from my publisher and just decided they've gone on the record saying it was too difficult to get people's consent, so we didn't.
Yeah, that's weasel words, isn't it? Oh, it was too difficult. We didn't bother. Sorry.
Although I do remember my publisher not sending me a royalty check once, and a year after they should have sent it, I contacted them and said, well, did you sell any books? And they said, yes. They said, oh, we've been waiting for you to get in touch. I said, what, to send me the royalty check? I said, yes. I said, but we didn't have your address. You mean the address that was on the contract that we signed?
Yeah, we don't, as artists and creators, we don't need AI to do us out of money. It's been going on for years.
Yes. And I said, and, if you had lost the address that was on the contract that we signed, it's actually quite easy to find me on Google, Actually, there was a time where if you typed Toby into Google, I was the first hit. Toby Keith has had too many hits. So I'm not even on the first page of Toby's now. But if you type Toby Walsh into Google, I'm still the first hit.
Well, I am interested in the fact that you were outraged that your words have been added to the, word mountain that is ChatGPT, that is AI data sets. I have another kind of angle on that, which is that, I grew up in the generation that was home taping for each other and making mixtapes. And I've always thought that culture needs a little bit of stealing and sharing.
But that was stealing for yourself. That was stealing for your own enjoyment.
Yes, but
so you could time shift and something that,
it
wasn't stealing it so you could build a $90 billion business and serve it up to hundreds of millions of other people.
No, but in any given age, there were always vast corporations profiting from artists and creators, and there were the actual artists and creators and consumers going around sharing ideas and disseminating work. And I grew up in a generation that actually paid to buy music and to buy books, and a lot of the kids today, I'm going to sound like an old man, the children today, they have grown up with the expectation that everything is available online all the time for free, is endlessly remixable, is endlessly stealable, but it doesn't even feel like stealing because that is the culture. And we're all thieves these days. And when you share, when you take 10 seconds of a clip from a sitcom and turn it into a meme, turn it into repurpose it, put somebody else's music on it, and send it into Instagram and send it into TikTok. You're not monetizing that, but you are monetizing those services. Oh, sorry, the services that you're sharing it on are monetized. They're very happy for us to keep making mixtapes, to keep making bootlegs. Someone is always profiting. I take that as a given. It's not my job to profit as an artist, that's for sure. I like it when the money comes, but it's my job to think about stuff and to try and make new stuff from it. I let the bigger systems be because I'm so generous. It's out of my remit. I don't think about. I accept that I have very little control over those larger structures. What turns me on mentally and creatively is putting ideas together, and I'll take them. I measure my own success through terms of artistic integrity. Then I put it out into the world where I expect there to be very little integrity, and I expect people to be sharing and disseminating and stealing in order to then make honest art for themselves.
Okay. So we are very much a part of a sharing community, is what you're saying.
Well, I am saying that, and it sounds like I just want to sign all our rights away, and I don't. I think people should be. I think people should work hard, and they should be rewarded for their work, and they should be valued. I do think that sharing is a part of the artistic process, it's a part of the cultural process. What worries me now is that the maths doesn't work.
Yeah.
And then this is what we're going to get to, I think, but when everything is endlessly takeable, shareable, remixable, co-optable, I think the delicate sort of ecosystem of art that always relied on some theft is maybe approaching a critical point where it's going to collapse altogether. That's the worry.
Does it not also worry you just the scale of the theft?
Yes, exactly. That's
right. That we've never had something where you could have all of our cultural knowledge taken in one place.
Yes.
Our human minds are limited. We riff off each other, but we've never had something where we could take every song ever written, every book ever written, every idea ever expressed, all in the same place. owned by the same corporation.
Yes, it does worry me. Also, I'm just distracted by your glasses. They're really nice glasses. But see, this is my mind. It will go. Yeah, it does worry me. As you know, not all of culture has been scraped yet and put into the LLMs, and
but we're going for it.
They're going for it, and now maybe there are going to be some checks and balances on that. And the fact that OpenAI and the other developers who are wanting to feed all of human culture into AI. Now we have a pushback already, and people talking about copyright and saying that there should be, a cap on this, or we're going to have to redefine terms. So great, that's started a battle, has started a conversation. From a purely theoretical point of view, it's if you took away sort of all notions of ownership and outrage and copyright, it's very interesting that the machine could have literally all of human creativity, and how a data set that large would result in
there are quite a few science fiction stories where that giant computer is quite a worrying character.
Well, right. There's Asimov, and the stars go out at the end of the story.
Now I am God.
Yeah.
So
Right.
we've established that human intelligence and human creativity is the backbone of all of this. So where are we with computational creativity? Can computers truly be creative, or is that something that's owned exclusively by humans?
I think we have an expert in the house.
Well, that is a fascinating question, and it's a question that's haunted the field of AI since the very beginning. Indeed, potentially from before the beginning. You can trace it back to Ada Lovelace, who was the daughter of Lord Byron, working with Charles Babbage, who was trying to build, unsuccessfully, the first mechanical computer back in the 18th century. And she actually asked that question. She had a marvelous mind from a marvelous family of creatives, and she was a fantastic mathematician in her own right. And she put forward the thesis that computers only do what we tell them to do. And that's an objection that has been haunting the field ever since. And indeed, if you then wind the clock forwards to 1952, when Alan Turing, the famous Alan Turing, on the £50 note, who was the father of computing in many respects, who wrote the first scientific paper about AI. And in that paper, he talks about the Lovelace objection and discusses whether that is a limit to what computers are going to do. And as a scientist, I keep an open mind as to the answer to that question. On one level, computers have done some things that some people might consider to be creative. They've made paintings that have sold in Sotheby's for hundreds of thousands of dollars. They've finished unfinished symphonies. I've written a computer program that invented some new mathematics that mathematicians thought were interesting, that they actually went and wrote, human mathematicians then went and wrote some journal papers about the maths that my computer had invented. So on some level, you could argue that computers have done some things that, if humans had done them, that we would say they were creative. But equally, the computers are not as inventive as Andy next to me. They're not as funny as Andy next to me by a long measure.
And they lack the spontaneity of humans.
I think we will make them more creative over time, and the latest antibiotic was discovered with a computer. That's going to be useful to accelerate science. But I don't think whatever they ever produce, however beautiful it might look, however amusing it might sound, I don't think it's ever going to speak to us like we speak to each other.
This is the question. Well, everything's the question with AI, it seems, at the moment. One of the interesting things is that it's throwing ourselves into relief and our society into relief, and bringing people who would never have been on a stage previously together. And I mean that in a very nice way, It's throwing our disciplines under the spotlight and making us question what is our own agency.
It is, but you hinted, I think, at what is the most profound part of AI, is what it reflects on us.
Exactly.
What it tells us about ourselves,
So-
about the human condition,
Right.
and all about being creative, about being conscious, all those other things that we thought were pretty unique to us.
Very much so. So what happened with the book I ended up writing about this nonsense? I spent a month engineering. I can't say writing. I spent a month engineering a novel-sized story with ChatGPT. And as I said earlier, this was a natural experiment. This thing came along. It was an enzyme for me. I was a natural receptor. We locked in. I was lost. And I spent a month feeling so many conflicting emotions. I thought, this isn't real writing. I'm not anywhere near the pain, frustration, self-doubt, self-mining, honest work that good writing entails. Good writing, good art, good anything, good work has to hurt or you didn't try hard enough. And I spent a month having the time of my life, but also getting very freaked out by this thing that was not quite writing. And I spent a month making this story as long as a novel. And at some point during that process, I thought, this is so fascinating. I want to deconstruct this and write about the process of this and where I think it's like real writing and where I think it's not like real writing. And in the end, that's where the real work came in. And that's the bit that hurt, me trying to decode what had just happened. And it makes me very proud that I took the machine that does all the work for you and turned it into the hardest work of my life. And only when it hurts me enough that I'm that close to a nervous breakdown do I think I've achieved something.
Do you think it's changed your writing now?
I think it's changed. I think it's maybe not changed my writing, but it's refreshed my eye and my taste for what is good writing and what is good creativity. The biggest shortfall.
So like Turner, you're going to thank ChatGPT?
Maybe. It's interesting. I've already seen. There's a beer company back in the UK, alcoholic beverage company that was using very colourful, quite psychedelic-looking graphics for the last few years. It's called Beaver Town, and they do some nice pale ales, and they're quite hipster.
Are they a sponsor?
No,
Not for this event.
but they do offer an illustration of what we're talking about. But I'd like them to be my sponsor. That would be great.
If anyone from Beavertown
anyone's listening,
please send Andy here
I'll
a
say
case of his beer.
I'll say anything you like for 12 cans of neck oil. And no, they were using very psychedelic imagery, and it was quite a trendy beer company. And that had been true for the last 5 or 6 years. And then AI hit in 2023. And within 6 months, they were still using human-produced art, but the art had started responding. The artist had started responding to AI visuals. And the artist's idea of what made really weird art has started incorporating too many fingers and wobbly lines. And they were doing a manual version of what AI does naturally, or what artificial intelligence does naturally. So it's expanding our palette, just as Turner expanded into abstract expressionism. Every time I watch a movie now, or read a good book, or experience any piece of art, I appreciate more and more what AI can't do and what humans can do, which is that humans have taste and placement and know how to pace. If they're any good, they know how to pace a story and how to go for the jugular and hit you. And why an emotional part of a story is placed at that part of the story and gets you and moves you. That's what ChatGPT and the AIs can't do at the moment. They don't know why they're doing what they do, and they don't know how to affect the audience the way a good artist does.
That's a great
the good
point.
news there is that, at least for a good time forwards, I can't see them doing that. As a scientist, I'll entertain the idea that they might get there given enough time, but in the short term, we're completely safe because they don't have our rich emotional lives. You understand what it is like to get that gut punch. You know what it's like because you have a rich internal emotional life.
It depends what you mean by completely safe. If you're a commercial artist,
yes,
you're definitely not completely safe at the moment because newspapers, magazines, online journals, and so forth are replacing human creators with easily accessible, dirt cheap AI visuals.
Yes.
So absolutely, you're not completely safe. At the higher end, I use that term in quotes. I don't want to be a snob about this. Away from the commercial sector, you're safer. But I think I can totally understand why amongst so many creatives, AI is a dirty word. But then, when drum machines came out and synthesizers and music started changing in the 70s and 80s, when those things really went above the radar, there were people who said, well, this isn't real music. This isn't, you haven't spent thousands of hours learning how to drum. You're pressing a button and programming something. And there are still people who think like that. And I love electronic music, and I love analog music, and I love acoustic music, and I love everything in between. And I love hybrid music where you can perhaps take some electronic elements and combine them with live musicianship. And I think all of these make music and art richer. And I hope and expect that AI will be folded into artistic output and become a tool, just as it's already been a tool hidden within lots of programs like Photoshop, and lots of music applications have already been using this sort of generative and interpretive technology for years, but those tools have been accepted as artistic tools. They haven't been as obviously a challenge to the status quo as Midjourney and DALL-E and ChatGPT when they hit en masse in 2022.
Music's a good example because if you look at the business model of music today, musicians make their money out of live performance. Right? Taylor Swift's first billion-dollar tour, she's not making her money much out of selling records. She's making it out of live performance.
Right.
Because that's something that you can't experience digitally.
No, but
it's you were there. You actually saw.
Yeah,
it
but
with your own eyes.
The reason that music is now produced to promote tours, which is where the money is, and it used to be the other way around. Yeah. Tours promoted your singles. Tours promoted your albums. It's completely reversed, but that's a function of or an outcome of the fact that physical media has died as streaming has become more or less the ubiquitous way we consume. That's not about how the music's produced, but it's about how it's packaged and sold or disseminated now, which is virtually.
But it's also about the experience, because it's a one-off. You're either there, living it in the moment, or you've missed the chance.
Oh yeah, that's true. Except now we're bringing people back holographically as well. So nothing. The crazy, maddening, infuriating, amazing, horrifying, disgusting, delightful thing about technology is that things move forward and things move back and things constantly and at once. I just bought a TV to replace my 12-year-old. I bought a Samsung TV to replace my 12-year-old Samsung TV because I thought, I have some idea that I have to keep up with things and things are better. And it came along and it was quantifiably worse in many ways than my 12-year-old. So I sent it back. This was better. That was worse. This was better. That was worse. Technology bundles up so many competing technologies that are all on their own horse races with each in their disciplines. Mm-hmm. And you sort of go, this is brilliant. It's all being designed it's all being run from one box. Oh, but some of the components are much cheaper than they were 12 years ago, so it's worse. But this is better than this is worse. And we never make a purely there's never a pure
Leap forward.
Yeah. It's always messed up with kind of
A little
bad
bit.
human decisions and cheap components that at the same time.
Yeah.
We're very, very messy when it comes to progress, I think.
So we're in a mess, but we are advancing in terms of AI. And Toby, in your book, Faking It, you cite examples where people were a little bit better than a coin toss at determining what was fake, what was generated by AI, and what was generated by human intelligence. People were mixing up work product from Bach and Shakespeare. So do you have any tips? Are there any telltale signs that will help us spot a fake?
So they just to give people the audience the context, they made a deep Bach bot. So they trained it on all of Bach's work, and then they picked 3 obscure cantata. One was written by Bach, the genius himself. One they asked a modern living composer to write in the style of Bach, and the third they got this bot to write. The bad news, in some sense, for music lovers, well, the good news is the Bach won, right? Bach, they asked the audience, classical concert audience, which was the best Bach, and Bach won. That's good news. But the human who was composing in the style of Bach came last, and the Bach bot came in the middle. So, and in fact, the way that in that case to tell apart, Bach's music is very mathematical. There's wonderful symmetries and patterns to be found within his music. And the Bach bot was too mathematical. It was a little too perfect in its maths. And the great man himself mixes it up a bit because that makes it interesting. It makes it unpredictable to your ear.
I think it's so interesting that you talk about music and maths because, as we know, AIs can translate all sorts of different modalities, all sorts of human disciplines and artistic disciplines into a common language and produce visual art and sound art and now maybe written art. And I think that the written word is going to be the hardest to replicate successfully at an emotional level. And the reason I think that, you might tell me otherwise, but the reason I think it is that music has mathematical rules built into it. Art has the golden mean, it has mathematical rules built into it, but also, if I want to draw a line or paint a line, there's a lot of choices in how I can do that, and the brush stroke and the texture of the paint or the artificial paint I might be using. If I want to play a middle C on an instrument, what instrument am I picking? Is it a piano? Is it a sitar? Is it a trumpet? And that middle C might be attacked in different ways. It might be, it might be a very strong middle C. If I want to write a word, if I want to write the word tree, it doesn't matter if I write the word tree or you write the word tree or an AI writes the word tree. I think we're dealing with language, with something that's much harder to combine successfully because the building blocks of language don't have augmentation and timbre and colour and attack around them.
Well, if I stretch your idea then, you would be suggesting poetry will prove easier than the novel.
Maybe so, yeah. Almost certainly.
Do we have any poets in the room?
Yes, I am a poet. No, you're an AI. Get out, sir.
And I always would have thought poetry would have been harder. It's much more playful with language. It's much less
it is, but
literal.
I actually think I think shorter is easier. Novels are harder. Novels have to combine movements of ideas and themes in a much more difficult to replicate way than, shorter is sweeter. You can maybe...
But this was precisely why ChatGPT so troubled you. Because its fluency was fooling you.
Yes, it was. ChatGPT, I mentioned that ChatGPT to me was a perfect enzyme and I was a perfect receptor. ChatGPT made manifest to me a lot of the things I'd thought about words and how we associate them together, and how we were talking earlier about how we might, how as humans we cluster words and their meanings together. So king comes near queen, comes near prince, and food would come near some, other thought. It would have other words and associations around it, and how we link ideas and how words link to each other occupies a lot of my time and thought. And I sit around thinking, I should be writing, but mostly I just think, I don't know what to write because everything's too complicated. But then this machine came along that seemed to show me, because I felt I could read what it was doing. I could see why it was making some of the connections it made. And it was kind of confirming how I think about the connections we made. And then I throw a little bit of myself into it and see what it does with that. And that pushes me, and I push it, and that pushes me. And at some point, I think this is just an illustration of what we do as writers anyway. Take the AI out of it, and I sit there going, I'll push myself, I'll see what it looks like on the page. That will give me a new idea. My writing pushes me, I push my writing. Now you put an AI into the middle, and it just makes clear, it illustrates to me something about the artistic process. Because it's not all in my control, it also comes up with what I find to be very amusing glitches and effects.
There's also a lot of deceit in ChatGPT.
Yes.
It's designed beautifully, I suspect, in many ways, to fool you. So that if anyone's used ChatGPT, when you ask it a question or ask it to write you something, it types the answer out.
Right.
And it types the answer out at about a speed you can read.
Yeah.
As though you were conversing with this thing.
Well,
and in reality, actually, the answer's there in a
answer.
flash. It could have just flashed it up on the screen. But that wouldn't have been so convincing.
Well, here's the other interesting thing, right? There's a million interesting things, but people have been using it as a search engine, as a research engine to generate factual material. And very quickly, as I'm sure most of you know, it was discovered that this so-called factual material is actually full of hallucinations, is full of made-up content that actually isn't based on fact at all. ChatGPT is designed to keep the illusion of this fluency and authority in play, but when it doesn't know anything, when it doesn't know something, it will invent.
Oh, it's worse than that. It's even if it knows, right? So,
Yes.
So it just says, what it thinks is possible.
Right.
If you ask it, who is Toby Walsh? There's lots of bios of Toby Walsh because I give lots of talks. People put the bio up on the web. So there's a Wikipedia page even of me. But you ask it for Toby Walsh's bio and it says, Toby Walsh used to be an AI researcher, but he's now a world-class poker player.
Right.
He's won $7 million at the World Poker Championship. A fact I think I would have remembered.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Because it's trained to open a lot of boxes and mash them up together so that it's not stealing from any one source or any two sources or any 20 sources, but it may be stealing from many, many sources and sticking things together that do not belong but sound plausible. When it's used as a fact-finding machine or a factual generative machine, it's a very dangerous machine. What was interesting to me was that I work in fiction. How can anything be untrue in fiction? That to me, that's a fault line. Fiction is neither fact nor untruth.
So did you turn the temperature up?
How do you mean?
So on many of the language models, there's a dial you can turn up. It's often called temperature. It's not really temperature. It's a made-up idea. But the more temperature you add, the more random it is, the more it makes up stuff.
Oh, I see. I have not gone and played with AIs for a while since ChatGPT, where there is no temperature gauge. But no, I like to do. Although I'm playing with this machine, I'm making up my own. I was making up my own interactions with it. My way of turning the temperature up is to say, "Oh, do that again, but make it more emotional," or "Do that again, but make the imagery very violent," or "Do that again, but." So I was investigating it by following my own instincts of
And prompting it in devious ways.
prompting it. Yes, thank you. Prompt engineering, prompting it. Do you all know what prompt engineering is, or have some idea of that? Because I didn't know at all what it was, because I did not want to look online at what anyone else was doing. I just wanted to see what would happen if I interacted with this machine for a month. It wasn't a plan. It just turned out to be about a month. But by the end of that, then when
Did your family start to get worried?
I think my family forgot I existed. I forgot they existed. But I forgot showering existed. I forgot food existed. It all felt like writing a real book. That's what happens when you really engage in something like this. It becomes a monomania. But it was such an interesting synthesis of the artistic process. But sorry, by the time I'd stopped writing that story and then came out of that world and looked at what the rest of the world was doing with this, I learned about prompt engineering, which of course I didn't need to learn about because I just spent a month learning how to prompt engineer without knowing it was called prompt engineering.
I mean, one of the good things you can get out of that, to go back to it making up my bio, is it's actually quite good as a career advisor. Because if you ask it what other careers you have, it will actually come up with things that are tangential but are actually plausible.
I know a lot of artists won't go near it, a lot of writers won't go near it. I also know a lot of writers will say to me, some people are very public about this, some people say, don't tell anyone, but I sometimes use ChatGPT when I'm stuck. And they'll say, oh, I've got these two characters and they're in a locked room and they have to get out, and it will give ChatGPT the situation. ChatGPT will go, oh, you could do this, or this. Usually those ideas won't be very good, but they'll get your mind thinking. And I don't see much problem in that. I think that's like phoning a friend just to sort of say, I'm stuck. And your friend says something, they're not a writer. You don't go, oh, brilliant, that's the idea. But you go, just from talking to you, that's told me where I need to go next. Not from anything you said directly. So if it's 3 a.m. in the morning and you can't wake up your significant other and you can't wake up your friends and you're sat there alone trying to break a scene and you type into a computer, oh, I wonder what would happen if there was a giraffe that was, being kidnapped by aliens, because that's what you're writing about. And it says the giraffe could escape and become friends with the aliens, because that's what ChatGPT does. It wants everything to be happy and non-confrontational. Where you go, well, that's garbage, but thank you. I've bounced an idea off you. I will use that. That sparked a new idea for me. I don't need the AI now, but it was someone to talk to. That's quite useful.
That's a great point.
There is a 4chan GPT.
What, sorry?
A 4chan GPT. It's trained on 4chan, which is this, really offensive channel, which tries explicitly not to be.
Oh, does
pleasant.
Yeah,
not to look for conciliation.
Straight. Oh, brilliant.
Look for fun.
I either must or must not try that. Yeah.
Yes.
I'll ask for final thoughts before we go to audience questions. And since you talked about calling up your ChatGPT friend at 3 a.m., for artists, musicians, journalists, is the end near? How do you think the creatives should be approaching AI? Should we be fearful? Should we be looking for other work? Or should we be leaning into its use as a tool?
I always say the answer to these questions is both. You should be fearful, and it's an opportunity at the same time. It is both of those things.
What he said.
Okay.
You could have phoned a friend.
No, I've got one right here.
Well, thank you both. That was a great conversation about arts and artificial intelligence. And now we're going to move to the audience. If you have questions, you can raise your hand and microphones will move around the room. I would just like to ask that we limit ourselves to one question. If there's time at the end, we'll circle back. And also, if you simply want to chat with either of these gentlemen, they will have a book signing directly following this session. So we're taking questions now.
All right. Thank you very much for your time today, guys and lady. I guess this question is directed directly to Toby. Is, as society, do we have a moral responsibility to train these large language models like ChatGPT? Because I feel like right now, the good part of society, probably everyone in this room, doesn't spend enough time within ChatGPT and with playing with these large language models, where the bad parts of society are spending a lot of time there. And these large language models are much like children today in 2024, and we have to help them grow up. So I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Interesting question. I'm actually really, as are many of my colleagues, quite surprised how polite and spoken these chatbots are, because they've been trained on half of the internet. And I look around large parts of the internet, and it's quite an offensive, vile place. So it's surprising how well behaved the chatbots are, despite the fact that a significant chunk of the stuff that the data they're trained on is not. But at the end of the day, we're going to have to make choices to what we train them on, and those choices are going to have consequence. Language is political. What words you use is political. What words you don't use is political. There is no unpolitical choices here. And so just as the analogy of bringing up children, I think, is a reasonable one. We should be careful about what we train them on. But you should realize at the end of the day, it's not like Elon Musk is promising there's going to be, a freedom of speech chatbot that speaks truth and doesn't speak lies. The language you use is a political choice. And we're going to end up with chatbots that reflect our politics, just like we choose our newspapers. We'll choose our chatbot because it's reflecting the sort of worldview that aligns with our values.
But is the question also about bad actors? Not, it doesn't matter so much what the training data is, as what bad actors can get them to do. Is that what you're asking as well? Because how do you cap the use of, or how do you regulate the use of AIs and stop humans using them maliciously? There may not be an answer to that.
No.
No, that's the answer. We're doomed. But then we're not doomed because of AIs per se. We're doomed because of bad actors having technology to greatly scalable weapons.
Humans amplifying their evil with technology. But humans have always done that, unfortunately.
So that's an opportunity.
An opportunity for mutually assured destruction, yeah. Hooray!
Thank you for the question. Definitely a good question. Okay.
So, have a nice day, everyone.
Your question.
Hi. Thank you for this wonderful panel, wonderfully moderated as well. I guess I'm just wondering what happens when it becomes harder to tell what is the emotional beat provided by the writer, right? And what is the structure, the math, the patterns provided by the ChatGPT. Just to give an example, I teach at New York University. A year and a half ago, my experience was very much what was described here, that you could kind of tell the ChatGPT wants to reconcile things, make things happy. It was kind of easy to tell what was fake and what was not. But increasingly, when I have my students do these exercises and they peer review each other's work, often they are sure that the human element is actually something that was generated. The emotional beat, the juggler, is actually something that was generated by the ChatGPT, and vice versa. So what happens when we're less sure of what our contribution is and what the AI's contribution is?
I think about the scene in The Matrix where the guy, I forget one of the characters, he's a traitor to his people. He hooks up with the Agent Smith, is that the Agent Smiths who are controlling the Matrix, and he's sat there eating a steak and he says, I know it's not a real steak, I know it's just a simulation, but it still tastes like steak to me. So he opts out of the human world, sells out his friends, and for a life living in a world that he knows is a simulation, but doesn't, he suspends his disbelief, it still tastes like steak to him. And I wonder, I'm very divided on this, I believe in the human spirit. I believe in human creativity. I believe in that thing called, at some level, in some way, a soul. I also believe that it's very difficult to project the future without thinking about oneself. And there may be people in the future, humans, for whom this is not important. And they, even if they know that the steak isn't real, that doesn't matter. It tastes like steak to them. I think, you think, we all think that would be a great loss. I think I can probably speak for all of us. But there may come a time when that's not a loss to people. And I think it is a possibility. My optimism says that we will never lose that faith in our own species, and that we will always demand that something has been grown from real steak, a real animal in some way. I'm mixing my metaphors now, but
Except for the vegetarians in the room.
yes, vegetarians notwithstanding. You can have real broccoli or synthetic broccoli, but
we are going to have richer and richer relations with
Yes.
these machines.
What-
And we already are, in some sense. Our relationships with these machines is getting richer. And, there's trivial questions like, should you say please or thank you to these things? Which is wasting your breath, ladies and gentlemen. But equally,
it's also not wasting.
it's
your
not
breath.
wasting your breath because, is that the world society you want
do
to be in?
How do you want to treat the external world, full stop? Do you want to go around kicking rocks and disturbing leaves and pulling flowers apart and talking disrespectfully?
I quite like kicking rocks.
Do you?
It's a good way of getting frustration out of one's system.
Oh, well, that's
And I
what,
don't think the rocks really suffer too
that's what
much.
a poker champion would say. You can kick rocks, but
Thank
you don't go. I think if you went around sort of altering the environment around you in a sort of very vaguely violent and disrespectful way, you'd be a hooligan, wouldn't you?
We will, but I think we have to realise, look at China today. There's a surfeit of young boys, and increasingly people are turning to bots for companionship.
But
and that is, you can see, going to be significant. Chia Voice has got half a billion users.
But the way
1/10 of the world's population are using a chatbot who gets multiple marriage proposals every day.
I have told my freezer to shut up before.
Did it work?
No, it doesn't work at all. But it's got no AI built into it.
Because you didn't say shut up, please.
Oh, is that what it was? But what I mean to say, we constantly and consistently and thoroughly have a kind of anthropomorphic relationship with everything around us, and sort of go, oh, your car has a personality. You buy one electrical gadget that seems to have it in for you, and another one that works fine. We've been anthropomorphizing things for ages. ChatGPT, AIs, are just a kind of, again, an amplification of all this. So they show us things about ourselves and our relationship to the exterior world. Now they start to encroach on our interior worlds, and that fusion is going to be the interesting kind of battlefield. That's the thing we can't answer yet.
I'm not sure we've answered the question. I can't remember even what the question was.
I know that
Did we answer the question?
you inspired more.
What happens? Yeah,
Okay.
when we can't tell, it may become irrelevant, because if we feel the emotional beat because it tastes like steak, that may be enough. I think.
Welcome to the Matrix.
Well, exactly. I mean, I think I don't like the idea of it, but I can see the possibility of it. I also think that if everybody is given access to, well, if large numbers of people are given access to these tools, which do become refined enough to produce emotionally affecting work, then that's just a new level playing field, and some people will be better at generating emotionally effective work with these tools than others, just as some people are better at programming drum machines than others, and some people are better at utilizing Photoshop than others. So it may just be a new framework to produce art in, and the other option is that the machines may not need us to produce emotionally affecting work at all, and humans may not care about that. But I hope it's the former. I think life is bigger than AI. I don't think AI is bigger than life.
I think we might see a technological backlash in the sense that we will step away, as we did in the pandemic. We'd step away from the technology and realize the thing that actually gives us satisfaction, the things that reward us in life, are not things that technology is mediating. They're actually spending time with other people. They're spending time in nature. Those things, I think, there's a great arc in some sense to history, which is technology got in the way, and we'll end up perhaps back doing the things we used to do before technology got in the way.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we're out of time. We've met our time limit. And before we depart, I'd like to thank our session sponsor, Dubai Duty Free, our title sponsor, Emirates Airline, our founding partner, Dubai Culture, and the parent organization, Emirates Literature Foundation. Also, thank you to the AV team and all the volunteers, and you, the audience, as well as our riveting speakers. For those of you who didn't get a chance to ask your questions, they will be available in the lobby for a book signing. Thank you again.